Hello, welcome to another briefing. This is the morning of Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. And we're looking at the mid-level water vapor imagery. This is what's going on with the water vapor at about 18,000 feet. If I put this animation into motion, this is going through the day yesterday and then into today. And what we notice is that we have a small little upper level low, if we can even call it that at this point, little spin in the atmosphere off of the California coast, but that looks like it's gonna fade out pretty quickly because we have a big ridge of high pressure building where you have all this yellow to orange coloring. This is drier air, which is being brought by this big high pressure ridge that's setting up. We have an upper level low pressure system with the classic counterclockwise flow around it, exiting the region through the Oregon-Idaho border right now. If I put this into motion, watch Oregon, see that spin? That's that upper low exiting or up into Idaho and away from the western states of the United States. So we see a big ridging pattern. It's going to set up a ridge of high pressure, which is going to translate to a lot of warming and drying with the jet stream winds way up to the north, keeping any kind of cooler air and storm systems way to the north for the next few days. And that will change as I get into the details of this forecast here. So now we're looking at the projection for the pressure heights at the 18,000 foot level. So this is the same level of the atmosphere that I was just showing the water vapor imagery in the last image. So we look at the anomaly, the pressure heights and the pressure anomaly for 18,000 feet here. So this is this morning, this is about right now, about what's going on per the European model projection. We have a 579 decameter low pressure center. This is a very weak upper level trough. You see the center of it, it's just average heights. It's not really a significant below average system. And then you have above average heights already building here on the west end of it over the Pacific with that ridge of high pressure setting up. So if I put this into motion, you'll see we go in through today and this high pressure sets up today and tomorrow will be very warm for a lot of areas on the west coast and in the Pacific Northwest. As you see this big blob of high pressure. This is 594 decameter high over the southwest here with 591 heights stretching all the way into British Columbia, so way above average heights for the Pacific Northwest and for a lot of British Columbia here. So do beware, we'll be very warm and dry in these areas. So put this into motion going into Thursday and Friday. We see that ridge kind of start to break down a little bit, and we have this other trough that starts to make its move onto California. Friday into Saturday. It doesn't look like this is going to bring a lot of rain, at least for most areas, except for maybe far northern California. It will, however, mean a deeper marine inversion layer and more onshore wind, making it further inland. So we'll have cooling through more ocean wind and maybe some more clouds, but not looking at much rain, at least as of now. Looking out further into the future, take this with a grain of salt because this is way out into the future, but about a week from now on Tuesday, we have a potentially stronger system making its way into the Pacific Northwest. This will definitely bring some rain to the Pacific Northwest, maybe some down into California, but it might still be a little too early to tell. Then that exits. But if we just take a look here, what the potential possible precipitation would be at this point, you see it kind of cuts off right around the Eureka area. Maybe Reading would get something, but still looking like not a very big shot of rain, at least in the meantime. Now let's move on to temperature. So I just wanted to start out, I'll start out with the West Coast, just the Western United States in general, the Western, going through a little bit of the Intermountain West as well. So we're looking at heat building already in California. We're already looking at 100s and 110s for Southern California. Coastal areas maybe 70s and 80s, but it looks like 80s even all the way to the coast. I'm actually not sure. It looks like not even many 70s on this at all. It looks like even the coast will be warming well into the 80s for Southern California. Central California, probably 70s for coastal areas. Northern California, maybe like Point Reyes, Half Moon Bay, maybe in the 60s, but elsewhere, probably 70s. Looking at about 100 in Sacramento, 100 for Fresno. Looking at 80 degrees for Portland today, 74 in Seattle. Looking at the Boise area, 83, Twin Falls, 79. Sun Valley would be right around 70. You have Denver at 90, Grand Junction at 90. Telluride area will be around 70 today. We have some 90s and 100s into the northern plains here, and some 90s into eastern Montana. You go into tomorrow and you have cooling for a lot of Montana, North Dakota, Wyoming. Still pretty hot for the plains into the Denver area. You have some cooling for parts of northern Colorado here, a little more comfortable with that weak trough pushing through. But you look out towards California and Oregon and up into Washington, you have that heat certainly building well into the hundreds tomorrow for the Central Valley. Likely 80s and 90s widespread for the Bay Area. Maybe 70s along the immediate coastline if you get enough of that onshore wind. Southern California just baking all the way to the coast. You have 90s, 100s with 110s inland. This is very hot, dangerous level heat for a lot of areas. Looking pretty seasonable for eastern Washington, eastern Oregon, Nevada, and Utah. And then, of course, seasonable for these areas in the Intermountain West that are seeing some cooling thanks to that weak trough that was passing through. As we go further into the week, you see more cooling for the Intermountain West and the plains, maybe even a little chilly for some of North Dakota here. A lot of cool air making its way in. Meanwhile, for further out west, California continues to bake. You go into Friday, maybe a little cooling for the California coast, but Oregon, Washington, California, very warm, above average for what you expect this time of year. Intermountain West looking pretty average, still pretty comfortable. Some of the northern plains, some of Minnesota here, it's chilly air has actually made it through with only 60s for highs for some areas here in the upper plains by Friday. And then we go into Saturday and you start to see moderating temperatures for the plains and kind of heating up at parts of the Rockies and the Tetons again, in Montana. And you see some relief from the heat for the West Coast. California, maybe some cooling. You see Washington still pretty warm, 80s in Seattle, 92 for Portland on Saturday after Portland hits 100 on Thursday, by the way, and then 98 on Friday. So Portland has a heat wave going on this week. Yeah, looking for cooling after that. And then this is way out there. This is not really worth discussing because it's further out, but if we look into the long term, it looks like much needed cooling for a lot of the Pacific Northwest, California, a lot of the West states in general. Looks like these next few systems will be stronger, so they'll be able to bring in more cool air where it's much needed. So just looking closely at the Bay Area, you see here what I was talking about. For today, you actually have 72 in Half Moon Bay today, 74 in Monterey. Half Moon Bay rarely gets out of the 60s. So this is quite warm. Even Point Reyes, you're looking at a lot of the Point Reyes Peninsula in the 70s, maybe 60s with the very tip of Point Reyes. This is very warm air for the Bay Area. When it's 70 degrees all the way to the water, you know it's very warm. So definitely beware of that. Definitely watch out. Also, I wanted to just talk a little bit about precipitation. We do have the chance of some precipitation today in the afternoon hours, primarily afternoon thunderstorms developing in the Intermountain West. I actually might get caught in one of these. I'll be on a train traveling through Utah if all goes as planned at this time today, where we will have thunderstorms for a lot of Utah, a lot of Wyoming, parts of Idaho and Montana, and then of course Texas further south. You have a lot of activity as well. Not as much for most of Colorado today, maybe some activity in the Rockies, but not as widespread as it was the last few days. Well, that's all I have for today. Thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time.